Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into some really fascinating stuff today. It's a text that kind of blends spirituality and social philosophy.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool because it's all about creating positive change.
hmm
Not just for like individuals, but for the whole world, like everybody.
Okay, so taking it out of the clouds and putting it into action, making
Exactly.
it relevant to like everyday life.
Yeah, totally.
What's the approach? What are we looking at here?
Well, it really emphasizes this idea called cosmic brotherhood.
Okay.
It's like the idea that we're all connected, we're all part of this bigger thing, this larger whole.
Right.
And it really encourages people to understand this connection rationally, like to reject superstition and narrow-mindedness.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot. Like it's about recognizing that shared humanity, but doing it with a clear head,
Exactly.
with logic.
Totally.
So how does this text look at global problems?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. It talks about these forces that are dividing humanity. You know what it calls fissiparous tendencies?
Okay.
But it doesn't say that we should all, like, be the same.
Okay, good. Phew.
Yeah, no, it actually pushes back against the idea of, like, forced uniformity,
I was picturing like everybody wearing the same jumpsuit.
like some kind of dystopian thing. Yeah, no.
So how do we get to this unity without erasing our differences?
Well, the text says that by respecting regional differences and different cultural expressions, we can actually strengthen this sense of universal brotherhood.
Okay, I like that. So it's like a mosaic.
Exactly. Like each piece is unique, but when you put them all together, you get this like beautiful cohesive image.
I love that analogy. It's like celebrating the differences, but recognizing that we're all connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it can't just be like vibes, right? Like we need some actual solutions here. What does it say about creating a more harmonious world?
Oh yeah, it gets into the nitty-gritty. The text outlines like 4 key areas that are essential for building this more unified world.
Okay.
First, you need a common philosophy of life.
Okay.
You need a shared constitutional structure,
Uh-huh.
a unified penal code, and a guarantee of basic necessities for everyone.
Wow. That's a big plan.
Yeah.
That's going from like personal values to global governance.
It's tackling it all.
All right, well, let's start with that common philosophy of life. What is that?
Basically, the text emphasizes that a real philosophy of life has to address all parts of being human,
Okay.
like the physical, the mental, and the spiritual.
Uh-huh.
And it actually pushes back against the idea that spirituality is impractical
Okay.
or like a tool for manipulation.
Right.
Instead, it positions spirituality as like a source of power
Yeah.
and like the basis for rational, ethical, framework.
So it's about engaging with reality, not escaping from it.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. But how do we find that common ground on a global scale when we've got so many different ideologies floating around?
Well, the text acknowledges that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And it points out that nationalism is kind of becoming outdated, that we need this more cosmopolitan perspective.
Uh-huh.
And it sees this idea of cosmic brotherhood as the key to developing that broader worldview.
Okay, so if we see ourselves as part of this larger thing, then it makes sense to look past national borders
Exactly.
and take that more global perspective.
Totally.
Okay, but how do we go from, like, philosophy to the actual how-to of governance?
Yeah.
What does it say about a shared constitutional structure?
Well,
We're talking about a one-world government.
it does mention a world government,
Okay.
but not exactly in the way you might think. It proposes a system where this global governing body would mostly focus on things that need international cooperation,
Okay.
like having a single world militia.
A world militia.
Yeah, for peacekeeping.
Wow. Okay, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that take power away from individual nations?
Well, the text actually addresses that by suggesting the world be divided into these socioeconomic units.
Okay.
And these units wouldn't be based on existing borders,
Right.
but on things like communication technology and resource management.
Okay.
And they would have a lot of autonomy.
So it's about a balance.
Exactly.
Global unity, but regional autonomy.
Yeah, exactly. Finding that sweet spot.
Okay, that makes sense. But wouldn't we all need to speak the same language?
That's a good question.
How does it deal with language diversity?
Well, it does suggest that we need a lingua franca
Okay.
for international communication.
Right.
And it even suggests English as the most practical option.
Uh-huh.
But it also stresses that it's important to keep and encourage different local languages and literature.
Okay, so unity and diversity.
Yes, exactly.
I've seen a pattern.
There's a theme here.
What about justice? How do we make sure things are fair on a global scale?
Well, that's where the third element comes in, the common penal code.
Okay.
The text argues that we need laws that are progressive,
Okay.
adaptable,
Right.
and can change as humanity's needs change.
A unified legal system. For the whole world. That seems like a lot. How do you make a penal code that works for everybody?
Well, the text connects the ideas of crime and virtue.
Okay.
It says that laws should be made to encourage actions that are beneficial to everybody,
Okay.
physically, mentally, and spiritually.
So it's not just about punishing people.
Right, it's more about fostering a society that supports well-being.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, it's a shift in perspective, for sure.
It is. So this focus on well-being ties into that last element, right? Guaranteeing the basics for everyone.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone has access to things like food, clothing, housing, medical care, and education, no matter what their circumstances are.
That sounds like a truly just world. But how do we make sure everyone has access to these things? Are we talking about like a global welfare system?
Well, here's where the text gets kind of surprising. It actually rejects the idea of welfare.
Okay.
It says we should have guaranteed employment instead.
Guaranteed employment. That's a new one. So we're talking about empowering people, right? Giving them the means to support themselves.
Exactly. The text argues that everybody should be able to earn a good living and, contribute their talents to the collective end.
Yeah.
It sees work as more than just making money. It's like a fundamental part of being human. Like it fulfills something in us.
Makes sense to me. Yeah. Having meaningful work gives you that sense of purpose.
Totally.
It makes you feel like you belong. But how's that going to work on a global scale? How do you make sure there are enough jobs, especially with all this technology changing everything so fast?
Well, the text suggests something called progressive utilization theory, or Prout for short.
Prout.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a framework for managing resources and wealth and making the most of human potential.
Okay.
Like this whole economic model for creating a fair and sustainable world.
So Prout, I'm not familiar with that. Can you break it down a little? What are the main ideas behind it?
Prout is all about balance.
Okay.
It wants to make sure everyone has the essentials, food, clothes, a place to live, healthcare, education.
Right.
But it also wants people to be free to pursue their own goals.
Okay.
It's not about getting rid of wealth, but about making sure it's shared fairly and used to benefit everybody.
So it's about making sure everyone has a chance to succeed, not just a select few. That's different from how most of the world works today. How does Prout actually make that happen?
One of the big things is that no one person should be allowed to hoard a ton of wealth without everyone agreeing to it, like through the Constitution.
Okay.
It's about preventing a few people from controlling all the wealth. Prout sees that as bad for everybody.
Limiting wealth, that's pretty bold. How would that even work in practice? Wouldn't that stifle creativity and people starting businesses?
Prout knows that individual initiative is important and it encourages innovation. It's not about stopping economic growth. It's about making sure that growth benefits everybody, the details that have to be worked out carefully.
Yeah.
But the main idea is to avoid that huge gap between the rich and the poor that we see so much of today.
I get it. When a few people have all the money, it can cause a lot of problems and kind of tear apart that sense of community that this text is all about.
Right.
So Prout wants to spread the wealth around more fairly. But what about people who can't work?
Yeah.
Because of like illness or disability, how would guaranteed employment work for them?
Prout acknowledges that not everyone can work in the traditional sense.
Right.
So it really emphasizes having a safety net for those people. The idea is that everyone should have what they need to live a good life, whether they can work or not.
Okay, so it sounds like Prout is trying to be both kind and realistic.
Yeah.
It gets the people are different and some people need help.
Exactly. It's about finding solutions that work for everyone.
This whole discussion about guaranteed employment and Prout is making me think about how the text defines progress. Is it just about the economy, or is there more to it?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
The text argues that true progress isn't just about money or technology.
Okay.
It's about freeing humanity from worrying about basic survival
Yeah.
so that we can achieve higher things both as individuals and as a whole.
I really like that definition. It's about giving everyone the chance to reach their full potential.
Exactly. That's the goal.
This has been really eye-opening, but I gotta admit, I'm still a little fuzzy on this Dharma concept.
Oh, yeah.
It comes up a lot, but it's not really explained. What's the deal with that?
Right. Well, Dharma is a tricky concept.
Yeah.
It comes from ancient Indian philosophy.
Okay.
And in this text, it's basically a way to figure out our true nature and what we're meant to do in life.
Okay.
It's about matching up our actions with these principles of cosmic unity and helping everyone around us.
So living by our values and contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
You got it. It's about seeing that we're all connected and acting in ways that help everyone. It's like a journey of self-discovery, finding your own talents and using them to make a difference.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It fits perfectly with the whole idea that we're all part of something much bigger and our choices matter.
Absolutely. Our actions have a ripple effect.
It makes you think about how we can each find our own Dharma, our own way of helping create a more unified and compassionate world.
That's the journey.
But before we go too far, there's one more thing we haven't really talked about. This psychosentimental nature of humans. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, sure. Psychosentimental might sound kind of weird,
Yeah,
but it's pointing to something really important about us as humans.
okay,
It means we're not just robots running on logic and selfishness.
right.
We also have feelings.
Uh-huh.
We can be empathetic and compassionate, and we crave connection with others.
So it's about the whole package, right? The logical and the emotional sides.
Exactly, the individual and the collective.
But how does being psychosentimental help us build the kind of world this text talks about?
Well, the text says that this ability to feel empathy and connect with each other,
Yeah.
that's the foundation for a truly unified world.
Okay.
It's about understanding and embracing that part of ourselves
Yeah.
so we can move past that us versus them mentality that causes so much division and conflict.
If we tap into that shared humanity, that ability to care for each other,
Right.
it becomes easier to see ourselves in others
Totally.
and work together.
It's all connected.
This deep dive has been quite a ride. We've talked about the philosophy behind cosmic brotherhood,
Yeah.
the practical stuff of Prout and Dharma.
Uh-huh.
This text really lays out a whole vision for a better world.
It definitely does. And some of it might sound a little out there at first, but
Uh,
what really strikes me is how hopeful it is.
right.
It's like a call to action, an invitation to imagine a world where unity, compassion, and human flourishing are just normal, everyday things.
And that's something worth fighting for, right?
Absolutely.
It's about recognizing our connection, embracing our shared humanity, and working together to create a world where everyone has a shot at a good life.
Beautifully put. It's a good reminder that we're not just sitting here watching the world go by.
Right.
We can actually shape it and create a future that reflects our values and dreams.
I couldn't agree more. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the problems in the world, but this deep dive has reminded me that we can make a difference.
For sure.
It starts with changing how we see things,
Yeah.
embracing our connection,
Uh-huh.
and taking action both individually and together.
Exactly. Every little bit counts.
This deep dive has given me so much to think about. I'm looking at the world differently now, seeing all these connections I never really noticed before.
That's what knowledge does. It opens your eyes, challenges you to think differently,
Uh-huh.
and helps you make better choices.
So true. And speaking of choices, this text leaves us with a big one to consider. What if we really embrace these ideas of cosmic brotherhood unity, compassion, and shared responsibility?
Right.
How could that change not only the world, but also our own lives?
That's the question, isn't it? How do we make these big ideas a reality?
Yeah.
How do we put them into practice in our own lives and in the world?
Yeah, it really makes you think, it's easy to get caught up in the big picture, but it comes down to the choices we make every day, right? Like how we live, how we treat people, how we interact with everything around us.
Yeah, totally. It's about closing that gap between what we want the world to be and what it actually is. Taking those big ideas and actually putting them into action.
This text gives us a lot to think about, but ultimately it's up to each of us to figure out how to make it real in our own lives, right? Like, there's no one right way to do it.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about it. It doesn't tell you what to believe or how to act. It's more like a set of guidelines, some principles, and a way of looking at things, to help us make better choices.
I like that a lot. It's about empowering people to make positive changes in their own way. Not about forcing everyone to think the same way. It's about that spirit of unity and compassion and being aware of what we're doing in the world.
You nailed it. It's about building a world where everyone's differences are appreciated, where everyone can be themselves, and where we all feel connected, like we belong.
This deep dive has been amazing. We started with the whole idea of cosmic brotherhood, and then we got into the practical side of things with Prout and Dharma.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has, and it's a really hopeful and inspiring message.
It is. And what really sticks with me is this focus on human potential. This text isn't saying that the world's going to be perfect,
Right.
but it is saying that we have the power to make it really incredible if we work together.
I love that. It's not about erasing our differences or trying to be perfect. It's about recognizing that we're all human and working towards a world where everyone can thrive.
Absolutely. And it all starts with each of us, being kind to each other, realizing we're all connected, and making choices that reflect those values. It's a lifelong journey of growing as individuals and as a society.
Well, listeners, that's the end of our deep dive for today. We've explored some pretty unique ideas about spirituality, social change, and what it means to be human. We've covered a lot of ground today, but hopefully it's given you some new things to think about and maybe even inspired you to think about how you can help create a more unified and compassionate world.
Thanks for joining us. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never forget the power of connection in your own life and in the world around you.